emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I caught my case in '98, and I fought my case for about 3 years. So about 2001 is when I caught the flight and ended up in Lompoc, California. When I first got there, I'm a youngster, and I had a little sense already, as far as how to conduct myself and all that. But I had no idea of what the environment would be like. You hear the stories of all the craziness that goes on. People, while I was fighting my case back here in the county, there was people that came back from the penitentiary and was telling us about, all the things that they were doing out there and all the things that was going on. And one of the things that they were telling me about was the Crack Riot back in '95. I think it's between '94 and '96, Now, what the crack law was, they had, at that time, they were charging you 100-to-1 ratio. That means if you got caught with 100 grams, they were giving you time for 100 grams. So if you got caught with an ounce of rock, when they went to go sentence you, they were sentencing you to 100 ounces of rock. And practically that's a life sentence. So a lot of people was getting dragged. And I hate to think that America had or have, laws that are racist. Because I like to think that, we make our own way, that there's never any easy road for people like us anyway. If we just go about our business, jump through the hurdles, and do whatever is necessary to pursue our goals. But the difference between the crack, the hard rocks, and the powder was so obvious. Because as if any of the histories of that substance, powders were mainly used by celebrities and the upper echelon of our community, the wealthier, the richer, because it was more expensive to obtain them. Back in the 70s, 80s, it was $50K for a kilo out in Florida, So, but somehow, the laws mandated that if you got caught with a gram of hard rock, you were sentenced to 100 times the amount that you were actually caught with. And the disparity between the sentencing and the law was, without a doubt, based on the color of our skin and the community we live in, because rock became a more affordable type of drugs for people to use, and it was rampant in the hood. When I was in Lompoc, I met a couple dudes that were in there serving life sentences, serving 50, 40 years for distribution, for running a crack empire. We had an issue with one of the homies from the Bay. His name was Ant. His homie was trying to say that, he was a rat, that he was telling. Because in his court transcript, it was telling them, when he testified, he was saying that he had got it from the government, that the CIA came and had offered him a deal to push, the drug in his community. He got rich off of it. Have you heard of the story of Freeway Rick and all them dudes that coming out of the Bay Area? This is around the same time. And if you're hip to that new series that's been out for a few years now called Snowfall, that's an actual event that happened in the Bay Area back in that time. But that movie is coming from the CIA's perspective. Now, just imagine this. You're getting, right now, the street value or even the connect value wholesale when somebody comes and drops you off a key it's 50 grand, 50K out in Florida. Here comes the government agency, the government agent working for the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, the spy network. They come over there to you and say, hey, we got a key for you for two racks. We can get into, our human nature of being greedy and seeing the money signs and all that stuff and disregarding our community and all that. But already you got these dudes that's living in poverty, that's living in the ghetto, that's living in the hood. And here's the opportunity for them to make buku bucks. I think, a lot of us that was in the same predicament would have jumped on the chance. Well, the CIA came and started pushing this shit. They were coming up offering these dudes out there in the Bay like, hey, it's 2K a freaking kilo. You know what I mean? So the room to make a profit is astronomical. And these guys bid on it and they took it. But the whole time when the CIA was operating, they were keeping track of who they were selling it to and all their network and everything. And when the DA approached them, they were like, hey, look, these guys work for us. But when we're done, we'll give you all the information. So basically, these dudes just got put in a trick bag. The government pushed the dope on them. Because really, I don't care who you are in the United States of America. We can't grow the plant that produces that. We can't get that unless it comes across the border through some type of avenue. And back then, blacks weren't really connected with dudes from Colombia, and Mexico wasn't, what they are right now. Mexico only became a powerhouse pushing dope through across the border after all the Colombian cartel got taken down. At this time it was Pablo Escobar, the Black Widow, and a couple other I don't know the cities, but they named these cartels by the cities that they're from down there in Colombia. I read a book called King of Cocaine, and in that book it tells you who and what was going on back then. Even it's still related because you seen that movie made by Tom Cruise. I think his name was Barry, Made in America. At the time in the 90s when I was going to court, there was dudes telling me that, yeah, man, Bill Clinton, he used to push dope. He used to sell, he used to play, he used to be involved in the cocaine trade. But I'm looking at this dude like, really? This guy's the president of the United States, But it turns out when he was the governor of Arkansas, he was allowing shipments, tons of keys, hundreds of keys to be transported through his state, Arkansas. They would take it from Colombia, come up, drop it off in Arkansas, and then spread it out through the rest of the country. If you've seen in the movie, the one that Tom Cruise made, the DEA agents down there had hemmed him up. And when they had hemmed him up, they got a call. And the call was from Bill Clinton to let him go. It's hard for us to believe that our own government played a role in decimating our community. Because, you would think, why? Why would the government do that? You would think that the government would be working for the people and trying to prop up their citizen. Because if you run a country, why would you want a country full of addicts and dummies? But, through the course of my 20-year bid, reading the books that I've read and all the rest of it, I've come to find out that these people that are in power, they fear knowledge. They fear unity. They want to keep us divided, keep us on substance, keep us dummied down so that they themselves can stay in control. It's easier to, manage the cattle if you keep them so busy. You know, you keep them so busy that they never ever able to get a chance to pick up their head and realize what's really going on around them. And it's sad that, you know, I've come to the conclusion, like I said, just through the things that I've read, that we're expendable. Our life is expendable. And I'm not saying our lives is opposed to just blacks or brown skin or minorities. This includes whites too. You got a bunch of trailer parks, white trash that they call, all throughout the cities that the elite don't give a fuck about. They lump us into the same, you know, pot. And when I say the elite don't even have anything to do with the color of your skin. The elite is the wealthy, it's the people that are moving and shaking and are really creating a foundation and have a say in how our society develops. And that's why I preach on here, because just from the environment that I live in that box, in that penitentiary, that is such a mixed pot, a gumbo pot of people from different races and different backgrounds and different states, that we have, you know, we have rules and stuff in place for us to coexist and to get along for the most part. And my mind is like, we're all victim of the system. That's not to make excuses for the things that we did that got us there. When I say we're victim of the system, meaning that, you know, outside of me, I don't really fall into this category, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. But there's a lot of people that grow up here in America that don't really have a fighting chance. You know, they grow up in certain neighborhoods, certain community, certain projects that really the choices to them is limited. And the only way for them to survive is to be involved in the activity that's going on in their neighborhood. Because as you're a kid, you can't really foresee yourself 5, 10, 20 years down the road when you're a middle-aged man, when you're a grown man. And for the most part, the condition that you're set in is really about survival. How do I get through the day? How do I eat today? How do I put food on the table? How do I ensure a roof over my head? So when an opportunity comes for you to be able to do that for yourself and your family, 99% of us is going to jump at it, you know. But, you know, there's always an agenda. Nothing just happens. Like, this guy didn't just run into a CIA dude and he, got lucky, and the dude's like, hey, look, I got a bunch of dope for you for the low. You know what I mean? There's an agenda behind it. And it's sad that the people that are in power, you know, like looked at the black community as expendable. And now, you know, there's another way to look at it. The reason that you can look at it as opposed to, you know, they don't think highly of you and they just want to just decimate your community. And another way to look at it is that they see you as a threat. And, you know, because people don't come and destroy things that are not a threat to them. But if they feel that you're a threat, that your community might one day rise up and be stronger than them, then they're going to do everything in their power to keep that from happening. So they destroy your community by making it, you know, crime infested, by pushing drugs into your community to turn your people into addicts, by promoting abortion so that you can abort your baby and not overpopulate them. You know, that's another thing. Like, you know, I really don't want to get into the politics of everything with this video. It's just seeing things for the way they are. And, you know, abortion started out with Margaret Sanger. And the reason she implemented that, trying to push that through Planned Parenthood, was, and I'm quoting, not for verbatim, but I'm quoting like, hey, these people are going to outbreed us. They breed like rabbits. They're going to outbreed us. And decades from now, they're going to overpopulate us and overrun us. So to keep that from happening, we need to allow and legalize abortion so they can abort their babies. You know, the 9/11, 2 airplanes came in and blew up the Twin Towers, right? And thousands of Americans died. And at that time, it's like one of the worst days in American history outside of Pearl Harbor. And there was such outrage, such anger towards the suspected, perpetrator. But think about this. If an A-bomb dropped in one of our states and killed millions of people, we would be outraged, right? We would be like outraged. We would want some blood, and we would want to hold somebody accountable. Well, since the inception of abortion, there's been over 6 million. 6 million. Think about that. African babies, black babies that's been aborted, minority babies that's been aborted. I only say that, mention that, just to try to tie in the story of how the government manipulates us throughout the course of our life in our community to have us at odds with each other. I preach on here. I guess it's preaching because I say it a lot, so I guess it's preaching. But it's like, I'm not your enemy. You're not my enemy. But somehow we've been tricked to thinking that we are the enemy of each other. We're under the same foot. It's the same boot that's on our neck that's keeping us from getting to where we want to go. And we need to start waking up and realize that and come together as a community. Because as a community, we can be really powerful. And this is not to incite any type of violence or even any type of protest. It's just coming together, getting to know your neighbors, and working with each other to build a better community, to hold each other accountable. Now going back around, like I said, I met a dude in 96 that were coming back to court. He just came back from Florence, USP. And he was telling me about the Crack Riot, And I met people throughout the course of my time that was involved in the Crack Riot that ended up getting 10 more years, 20 more years, depending on, what happened during that time in their prison. And the Crack Riot happened, it was spontaneous. There was no organization or organized effort to protest the law. Everybody that was in jail on the crack, they see that they got a bunch of freaking time that they shouldn't have. Like I said, you get caught with 1 gram, they were charging you with 100 grams. So people getting stretched out for possession of crack cocaine. So all these dudes, they're waiting on the law because it's 100-to-1 ratio. Like, I don't know who came up with that law and how they justified it, but that's what it was. It was 100-to-1 ratio. So all these dudes, and there was a bunch of dudes, and most of them were blacks that were stuck in prison for crack. So all these guys, they're all waiting to see if they're going to rectify that, if they're going to make that right, if they're going to, like even now, it went from 100-to-1 to some other ratio. At one point, it was 8-to-1, and don't know exactly where it's at now, but they're starting to, try to right the ship. But there's thousands of lives has already been wasted and thrown away because of the atrocity of the law, of the injustice of the law. So at this time, around 94, 95, these people that was in the penitentiary, they were waiting for the outcome of this law. They've been challenging this issue, and they got all the way to the Supreme Court. And when it got to the Supreme Court refused to correct it. And in that moment, all throughout the United States penitentiary, the USP and even some of the FCIs, they're like fed up with it. You know, there was nobody out here outside of the people that really, you know, work to help, you know, change the law. The community as a whole didn't understand it. And a lot of the people in the community just felt like, well, you shouldn't have been selling drugs anyway. You know what I mean? A crime is a crime is a crime. But punish me according to the crime that I commit. Don't give me extra time because of the color of my skin or because of, you know, my economic standard or because of what community I come from. You know, if you have a law, it should be even across the board. If you do this, this is what you get. You know, our skin tone, our background should have nothing to do with it. But the community really didn't care about what was going on because it wasn't in their backyard. They just looked at, oh, it's a bunch of black dudes over there selling drugs on the corner and whatever, like they deserve to be in prison anyway. Maybe so, but not according to the way that they implemented the law. You know, they weren't guilty of having 100 grams of dope. They got caught with a gram. They were an addict. They were used. There was a lot of crackheads, a lot of addicts that end up going to prison and serving decades because, you know, they put a jacket on them that they were drug dealers when in reality they were a victim and somebody that needed help. So when the Supreme Court refused to rectify that, make it right, riots broke out through all the penitentiaries. And again, even some of the FCI. And my friend Omar that I always mention with you here all the time, Omar Spearman, dude out of Detroit. He's an old head. I mean, he's an old head to me now. He's in his 50s. But he's been in there since he was 19 years old under the crack law, serving 3 life sentences. And he was telling me in one of the penitentiary that he was in, when the crack riot jumped off, it was bad. It was bad for the COs. COs got killed. They had the incident that he mentioned to me was that they were in the kitchen. And, you know, in the kitchen, you got big pots that you cook beans in, that you cook rice in. And I'm talking about just, you know, you got to feed 1,500, 2,000 people. So that rice pot is a big ass pot. It's, you know, I can't even put my arm around it. Like I don't even know the diameter of it, but it's huge. It can fit a body in there. And in one of the incident, they grabbed a female CO and threw him in there and boiled him alive. You know, other COs got stabbed. There were maybe even some incident where female guards got violated. You know, I'm against that as far as like violating a woman and all that stuff. But I can't really speak on to, you know, the limitations of what you're going to do against an enemy. And these people were the enemy. These people worked for the system. And these people held the keys to keep you locked up. Yeah, again, you know, there wasn't an organized demonstration or anything. It was spontaneous because the people in the penitentiary were so frustrated about the injustice, and it ended up costing a lot of people's lives. Not only the staffs that got killed, but the people that were serving the time. And even the people that weren't even there for crack riots, for crack. They got involved aiding and assisting the people that they grew up around. And a lot of people got 7, 5, 10, 20 years. Some people end up getting life sentence because of it, because they end up killing a staff member. And going back all the way around, all this shit was pushed into our neighborhoods, the black community, by the U.S. government. And maybe some people still have a hard time believing that, but That's facts. I don't know if you can Google it. You know, the information that I'm getting it from is from the people that were serving time for that. The people that dealt with the CIA, that was buying dope from the CIA, and then turned around, got indicted by the DEA. Right? Really, I just want people to wake up, man, that maybe our government and people in charge don't have our best interests at heart. And I know it's an uphill battle to fight the forces that may be, but we don't have to really worry about that if we build our community up. And really, that's where I'm pivoting to, because that's what I came out here to do. I came out here to be a voice for the people that's locked up, to share you stories about the environment that they live in and about the injustice, you know, as far as the time that they were getting. And hopefully through the grace of God, be able to prevent some of these guys from being in the system. I don't know how far I'm going to go. Like I said, I've been showing you a little different stuff that I've been doing. I just hope you guys continue to follow me, continue to support me. And like always, I appreciate you guys, the YouTube community. You know, we become family. And thank you. Welcome to the USP.